Cancel culture is real. Cross-Politic is on the front lines of this battle with the goal of creating a Christian television network and platform where we can't be canceled and where content creators will have the freedom to glorify God. Our goal is to create a space for like-minded businesses to thrive on this platform and to reach an audience that will not only buy your products and services, but also support your business when the heat of cancel culture comes your way. We want our platform to help you create an anti-fragile business as we bring together Christians from all over the world to tune in. With millions of downloads a year, access to DirecTV, Xfinity, and social media outlets, we are excited to partner with you. So, if you own a business and believe in this vision, then you need to call me. I'm Garrison Hardy, and I am the Business Development Rep at Cross-Politic and the Fight Laugh Feast Network. We are looking for businesses, large or small, that not only have great products and services, but also understand that the cultural battle that is impacting the business climate here and now. I have a background in marketing, and I'd love to help you advertise your business on Cross-Politic. Give me a call at 208-792-1290 or email me at garrison@fightlaughfeast.com.
Joy Pullman in the house. Y'all don't know Joy until you hear this interview.
It
was fire. Yep.
On fire.
What is this non-executive order press release stuff that Biden's been doing?
Uncle Daddy does what he wants to do.
It made me feel stupid. That's for sure. Is Social Security going to be there for me when I get older?
No.
I don't know.
Nope.
I hope.
Your kids will be there for
I don't
you.
even care. Welcome to Cross Politic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Pastor Toby Chuck Knoxon. The Water Boy. It's good to be with you guys. And as you guys know, it's cancel culture season for Cross Politic.
Which is all the time.
It's like a hunting season for us here up in Idaho, but we're the hunted this time. So join the Fight Laugh Feast Army and download our app. That's the best way to consume our content. What's going on? We got Joe Boot now releasing on our network.
Yeah.
So you can only consume him on our network on the app. You might be able to find him some other places, but we just care about the app and everything. So download.
Just going to keep
the
saying
app.
that.
Yep, that's right. Download the app.
Hey, not so long ago, the American dream was alive and well. Remember that? Remember those
Not
days?
so long ago.
I do. Yes.
Joy mentioned George Bush on the interview, and I was like, man, I don't like that guy, but I want that guy back.
Employees who worked hard were actually rewarded, and employers looked for people who could get this, do the job. Remember those days? The good old days? Not for people who had the right political views or voted for the right people. Redballoon.work, redballoon.work/FLF even, is a job site that is designed to get us back to what made American businesses successful. Free speech, hard work.
Sleeping pods.
No.
Oh, okay.
And having fun. If you're a free speech employer who wants to hire employees who focus on their work and not identity politics, then post a job on redballoon.work.
So simple.
If you're an employee who's being censored at work or forced to comply with the current LGBTQ plus zeitgeist, post your resume on redballoon.work and look for a new job. www.redballoon.work/FLF, the job site where free speech is still alive, or just go to redballoon.work.
Somebody wrote that wrong.
And put in FLF 2021 for your 20% off discount.
No commies around here. I just want to say real quick, I've had so many people hit me up on Facebook saying, so grateful for redballoon.work because I actually have a new job now from my old employer who was trying to get me vaccinated, and I didn't want to. I went on there and
got a new job.
Absolutely. It's pretty awesome.
I think that's probably what's going on with that whole, how many millions of people left their jobs in August?
4.3.
Quit for their jobs, and they went to Red Balloon.
They blown
All
up.
3 million of them. I don't think so. Last Wednesday, I was kind of joking about the Social Security thing.
No,
Not really.
Not really.
Not really. The Social Security Administration announced that roughly 70 million people are on Social Security, retirees, disabled people, and so forth, will receive a 5.9 cost of living adjustment. This is the largest cost of living adjustment that they've received, I think, since the 80s.
Yeah, 40 years. Over
82.
40 years.
Normally, cost of living adjustment is about 1.7%, which is below annual rate of inflation. It's actually 3% where you should be at.
Yeah.
So you're not even getting the standard increase that you should
just
get.
grandpa.
And so now this year they're raising it 5.9%. So the average person means they'll get additional $92 a month.
They can go have one more tank of gas.
Yep. How's Massa feeling right now? Not very good. But this is happening because of inflation. Okay, so like consumer price went up 5.4%. So consumer prices on average went up 5.4%. Grocery prices skyrocketed. A good example of this, like eggs, went up 12.6%. That's a lot. Fruit went up 5%. New car prices. Did the eggs bigger? No,
I'm just wondering.
They're still the same size. They just cost more.
Got smaller.
And they probably got smaller. They probably went down to 10 instead of a dozen. Yeah. You know,
the new dozen is 10.
Yep. New prices rose 8.7%. Now here's the thing. We really need to, I think, get our heads wrapped around inflation for multiple reasons. But inflation is technically the rate of increase in prices over a given period of time. That's kind of like the economic definition, but it really misses out what is going in our current context with inflation. Okay, it doesn't quite capture what's going on in what is really happening when inflation occurs is that you have more dollars floating around in the economy than you do goods and services.
And it's not like just the point is that it's the way money is made.
That's right.
Is produced because you have goods and services being offered.
Right.
Yeah. And then people then give in exchange. And so that's how you create the circulation.
Just because prices go up doesn't mean we're suffering from inflation.
Right. Prices can fluctuate based on all kinds of factors, but in true inflation is when you just have this money going into the economy, but it doesn't actually match up with real
innovation,
goods and services.
That's right. And so what happened this last year is our government broke our economy.
What did happen this last year?
And handed, so you remember, the government handed over $5 trillion. You know, they printed it up somewhere.
Oh my goodness.
$5 trillion in stimulus. And that increased unemployment checks. Okay, so a lot more people were on unemployment dime also, while producing no goods and services. Right. There was no increase in that. So we gave a bunch of people money. At the same time, production in goods and services in the economy decreased. And that's why we're seeing inflation. So we gave a bunch of people money and then no increase in production of goods and services.
So we didn't get 13
in fact,
eggs
it decreased in 2020.
And the thing with inflation to recognize is that even though you give more money to the senior citizens, you give more money to the Social Security to try to keep up with it. With inflation, is everything's going up.
Yeah.
So it's not like the senior citizens, not like people on Social Security are getting more money.
That's right. $92 a month isn't going to help.
They're not going to be able to buy more with that $92 more a month.
Yeah. Now, and the reason when I was reading the article, I kept thinking to myself, like, this is a clear example of how we're getting inflation, but it's not why we have inflation. And the real reason that why we have inflation at the bottom line is because we have been covenant breakers with God.
Oh, you're just going to go there.
Well, that's, people are forgetting how the world works. The world works covenantally, right? And so if you obey God, you get blessings. If you disobey God, you get curses, right? And inflation,
that
deflation.
Sounds like Sunday school.
We missed Sunday school. We really did. But inflation, deflation, a broken supply chains, all this really is like a check engine light on what our relationship has been with God.
I think it's like 10 check engine lights.
And
all your
whole dashboard.
The whole dashboard. The lights are on the car.
It's Christmas on your dashboard.
The truth is that the batteries are going out. So the lights are barely blinking for us. But if you go back to Deuteronomy 28, like, you understand this. It's so clear. Like, here it goes.
Wait, that's in the Old Testament.
Didn't you say this is like Jesus' favorite book?
You got me.
You got blessings on the land, blessings on the fruit of our labor, blessings in the womb of our wives and our women, blessings and peace offerings, blessings on health, blessings on health. We're going to be feared by our enemies. Our borders are going to be protected. We're going to be the head and not the tail. We're going to lend and not borrow.
Yeah, right.
And one of the things that we did, now this is all contingent. If you go to Leviticus 26, this is what's beautiful. It's all contingent on worship. Like, if you look at what happened this past year, what did we do?
Stopped worshiping.
We shut down. I mean, this article is talking about it. This is the worst that we've seen kind of inflation our whole lifetime, a whole generation, 40 years. It's not a coinky-dink. People, pay attention to the story.
Oh, my goodness.
Leviticus 28 starts like this. Ye shall keep my Sabbaths.
Oh, man.
And reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord. If ye walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, then I will give you rain in due season. Rain comes from God. And the land shall yield you increase.
Yeah.
And the trees of the field shall yield their fruit, and ye shall eat your bread to the full and dwell in the safety.
That's supply chains.
Exactly. Faithful,
right,
loving obedience to God is connected to our money, to our economy, to farming, to effectiveness of our businesses and the fruit of our womb and safe borders.
Worship builds supply chains.
And somehow we tend to think And this is what's broken about us because we don't understand how God's world works. We tend to think that if we can elect the right person, get the right Supreme Court judge in there, get all these other things fixed, that somehow this is going to fix our supply chain, when really what we need to do is have a campaign for sackcloth and ashes 2021. Man. That's what we really need to do. And we need to do that immediately.
We're going to fix this with a COLA increase.
Exactly. Cost of living.
$92.
Yeah, no, it's not going to work.
Don't also forget that we're talking about our parents and our grandparents. I mean, this is Social Security, parents and grandparents. And what did we do? We did exactly what Jesus condemned when we set up Social Security.
That's right.
When we set up Social Security, we said that whatever we would have used with personal responsibility to take care of our own parents and grandparents and great-grandparents.
We're going to crowdsource that.
We've given it to the government, and now we don't have to. It's Corbin, baby.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jesus hates that. I mean, that's the whole thing, and that's longer than a generation. That's like 2 generations back.
Wow.
Is it any accident that COVID hit our nursing homes the hardest?
Sure, I was talking about that.
I mean, it's to our great shame that we are abdicating our responsibility to care for our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. And remember the 5th commandment? It's the commandment with the promise that it may go well with you in the land. That's what we're talking about. Do you want it to go? And again, it's like, but that's Sunday school.
Yep.
No, this is economics.
Well, that's Old Testament. Yeah. The church ain't Israel.
No. And to your point, and to your point, if it's not going well in the land, maybe we should start with the 5th commandment. Are we honoring our fathers and our mothers? And Knox, I'll just point out that Paul quotes that command and covenant promise straight across to who? Gentile kids in Ephesus. Do you think Paul knew that the new covenant didn't include kids anymore?
Go baptize your kids if you have children.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
But he just says it, right? I mean, no, but here's the thing. We shouldn't be thinking that covenant curses merely come like bad vibes and feeling bad. Covenant curses come in drought, come in fire, come in hurricane, come in broken supply chains and inflation out the wazoo. God promises that when you don't worship him and keep covenant with him, he'll curse your weather and your climate.
Healthcare professionals have said to me, if you think COVID is bad, when it comes to climate change, you ain't seen nothing yet. It's the grandmother of all health threats.
He's honoring his mother.
COVID and climate change are compounding each other, and they're adding pressures on already weak health systems and staff. And it's why business as usual is not an option. And it's why now we need to truly have health at the centre of all our policies: energy, transport, agriculture, water and food.
Man, we've been saying this for a year and a half, that our totalitarian government thrives off crisis.
Yeah.
Now
you've been saying this, Gabe, in particular. I just got to say that. You've been saying this.
Yeah.
Remember Rahm Emanuel's sage advice, never waste a crisis.
Yeah.
But what's crazy to me is I looked up that quote when I was thinking through this, and that's not the end of the quote.
No,
the end. He says the quote doesn't stop there. He goes on to say it is an opportunity to do things that you think you could not have done before. So never waste a crisis. Yeah. Wow. I was like, wow. And so think of how this crisis has been used this last year. The government has used the COVID crisis to pass $5 trillion in stimulus. We already talked about that. They rearranged our economy. I listened to this interview from Molly Hemingway that you forwarded, and she just talked about how they kind of rearranged all these voting practices.
Wow.
And a lot of them are actually now established in legal rules and laws now in the land, in various states.
Yeah.
And so they rearrange voting practices, and then, of course, they're dividing our nation between vax and unvax now.
Yeah.
They revamped the election, and the list goes on. Now that there is blood in the water, so the Democrats, they see what they've been able to get away with COVID.
Oh.
There's blood in the water.
Not just Democrats.
Yep.
All of them. All of them.
Well, yeah. And I think the blood in the water is actually that the citizens buckled.
Yeah.
That's the blood in the water.
They're like, we can do this.
Yep.
We can get away with it.
Yeah. Well, look what just happened. And now I think the liberals, they've been trying to run this climate play for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And now they're like, I think we can finally run this climate play.
That's what's mostly in this new $3.5 trillion mess.
That's right. And they've been priming that climate change pump for a while. And the crisis played out for them. I mean, the COVID crisis played out, I think, perfectly for them. And they're going to double down. Climate crisis is COVID 2.0.
Yeah, but that's what he says. It's the grandmother.
Yeah. So the COVID was an invisible threat. Climate change is even a bigger invisible threat. COVID is a health crisis. Climate change is a health crisis. This is WHO talking about climate change.
Yeah.
Well, not just COVID. Now they're talking about climate change. They're excited about this. And of course, he calls it the grandmother. He's talking about climate change.
Yes.
The grandmother of all health crises. And the next play that I think it's going to be stronger. They're going to lean in stronger than they did with the COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And the mandates will be more intrusive, and it'll be done in the name of your health, your safety, and loving your neighbor.
Right.
That's where this is going.
Do you want the world to end? He's not wrong, though. He's not wrong.
What do you mean
though.
by that?
COVID and climate change are related, not only by the fact that they're sort of these machinations,
these kind of parallels that you can kind of pick out.
Psalm 2 conspiring against Christ, but this play is nothing less than us turning to our false gods. The cycle is this. You know the cycle in Scripture. We turn away from the living God to false gods, and the living God gives us over to the false gods, and they in turn give us bad weather, droughts, hurricanes, wildfires, bad health,
and slavery,
disease, slavery, totalitarian government, broken supply chains.
That's right.
And instead of turning back to the living God, we cry out to Baal louder. Save us, states. Save us, government.
Poopy water.
That is what this climate crisis is. There's no doubt many lies mixed into climate change stuff and the whole thing. But Christians should not be surprised to see real climate problems happening.
Yeah.
Back to the point you make, Knox. I mean, God says when you turn away from me, your climate is going to get wrecked. The pagans can point out true fluctuations.
Yeah.
They can point to real data.
Yeah.
But their great mistake is in thinking that we are the only players. Some of it may be natural fluctuation. Some of it may be man-made. But some of it is no doubt God's judgment on our land.
You know, the part of last night when I was doing some of the reading about this in the Bible, one of the things that I found was that when you have false idols, that is a judgment from God.
Yeah.
And that's just
He gives you over to idols.
That's right. And so when because part of the judgment is like, hey, if you get in the land and you don't honor me, right, I will give you over to false gods and you will worship them and they will take your kids too. That's another thing.
They will deform you. They will destroy you. They will take your kids.
One of the most important things I think I learned since we've been doing this show was from Dr. Gordon Wilson when we had him on.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said, I hope I can get it exactly right. He said, if there is a climate issue, we should understand that climate issues are a judgment from God.
Yeah.
But they're not a judgment because of the climate itself. They're a judgment because of our sin.
Yeah.
And he kept going back to the fact that if you go look at Hosea, here, let me just bring this out. It's right here.
You're going to just read the Bible here on the show?
I don't know how many political shows you're going to see somebody just grab open the word of God.
Amen.
Hear the word of the Lord. Actually, that's what it says. Hear the word of the Lord.
It's in the Bible.
You children of Israel, for the Lord brings a charge against the inhabitants of the land. There is no truth or mercy or knowledge of God in the land. This is Hosea chapter 4.
Yeah.
By swearing and lying, killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break all restraint with bloodshed upon bloodshed. Therefore, the land will mourn, and everyone who dwells there will waste away with the beast of the field and with the birds of the air. Even the fish of the sea will be taken away.
I just want to point out, too, back to the point.
Word of God.
Thanks be to God.
Amen.
I was not kidding. When Paul quotes the law, fifth commandment, honor your father and mother, that it may go well with you in the land, he quotes that to Gentile kids in Asia Minor. So somebody out there in y'all is going to say, oh, Knox, Hosea is talking about the promised land. But Paul said the land is now the world.
That's right.
The land is now the world. That pattern that God is teaching his people about what was true about the promised land in the old covenant has now been expanded to the whole world. You're committing adultery. You got a porn problem, right? Why is the land mourning? Why is pollution destroying animals and the creation?
And it was always from the beginning God's intent to give his creation, his people, to take dominion over the world.
The world.
That was always his intent.
Right.
Our eschatology really lets us down right now
that's
in this whole conversation.
That's because we don't get Genesis right either. But that's
right.
Another conversation.
Woo!
The next conversation we're about to have is
Google
with Joy Pullman.
Buckle up.
Yeah.
Buckle up.
You get your fire extinguishers out. More Cross Politic coming up next.
My name is Jamie Piles. I joined Samaritan in December of 1996, so I'm coming up on 24 years. When people ask me, does it really work? I say, oh, it works fantastic. I send my money to somebody every month. But we had a need. My wife spent a little bit of time in the hospital about 3 months ago, and so I had a checklist with about 39 names on it, and 39 checks came in. some of the cards, some of the things people had to say. It was amazing to watch.
Welcome back to Cross Politic on the one and only Fight Laugh Feast Network. Was I supposed to plug anything at the beginning of the segment? You didn't tell me anything.
The club membership.
Subscribe for a magazine.
Oh, those are so nice.
It's in the mailbox. Oh. It's in the mailbox.
Hey, we're so grateful to have with us on the line right now Mrs. Joy Pullman, executive editor of The Federalist, author of several books. Check them out. Happy wife and mother of 6.
Bars.
As her great accomplishments. She identifies as Native American and gender natural.
Gender natural.
That's what it says. Okay. and I think she's only rejected 2 of my submissions
you gotta bring that
to
up.
The Federalist.
You got to bring that up.
I was like, I think I've interacted with her before. No, she was very.
We got to do this live, Toby.
We're gonna do it live.
Yeah.
Very gracious. Joy, thanks for joining us on Cross Politic.
Thanks for having me.
So there's no vaccine mandate. You got this article in The Federalist. It's all a mirage. It's all a charade. Biden made this big showy announcement, and there's actually no real mandate, no executive order. Your article was published, I think, over a week ago. I found out about it like 2 or 3 days ago. And
does Biden know?
I haven't.
I think he does. Yeah.
I haven't really heard a peep about this. Where has the explosion been?
Well, actually, it was just a day or 2 ago that Biden's press secretary actually, I think, tacitly responded to the article, which went mega viral, by the way. And I just thought it was going to be this one curious little fact, but people really, really were interested in the fact that, what really happened was Joe Biden came out in, I want to say early September, said that he would, and now to make it clear for your viewers, because I've gotten a number of emails about this, there are several different federal vaccine so-called mandates. And the one we're talking about that hasn't been, legitimately even filed in the Federal Register or anything yet is the one supposedly against private businesses that have 100 or more employees. So Biden announced that in September, and it was maybe 3 weeks later that I was just doing some reporting on a different subject, talking to a state attorney general's office, when I basically said, okay, so, you guys are against this, you say, but why haven't you filed a lawsuit? They said, well, that's because there's nothing to file a lawsuit against. And I said, what? There is, that he said. So it was just really weird because, I've done a little bit of reporting on, federal executive orders and all, the entire bureaucracy. And I know a little bit about how they work. And so I know, there would be a filing in the Federal Register. You're supposed to do notice and comment. But basically we didn't have, it was a month later, at that point, there was nothing but a press release. And so I thought that was, weird. And so I just decided to write it up and people were really interested.
So when I read your article, you brought up this ETS bureaucratic, I guess, paperwork that can be filed that was released regarding the mandate. How does that kind of fit into all this?
Well, basically, what that is, we have a really complicated federal government who basically almost everything that's actually done nowadays at the federal level and even a lot at the state level has nothing to do with the elected officials. It's entirely run by basically unelected lifers, bureaucrats. Nobody knows their name until they change your and my life, with instances like. So there, basically, a lot of our lawmakers have completely checked out, which we've seen a lot over the coronavirus outbreak, just allowing basically other people who do not have any responsibility to face the voters to run everything. And basically they're hiding from, their voters because of that. So the usual process for a federal agency to basically take the place of Congress and impose regulations on people, at the very least, they have to go through, a pretty long process. Takes typically 9 months to a year and a half, depending on how things go. But they have to issue a draft regulation. They have to publish it in the Federal Register. Then they have to give so much time for there to be public comments, on that. has to be, I believe, at least 30 days and preferably more than that, 60 days or more. And then, by law, these administrative agencies are supposed to then respond exhaustively to the comments, and then in their final rule that they admit, show that they have incorporated it. So it's a far cry from actually representative rule, but at least there's even some pretense of listening to the people in this process, even if they can completely ignore them, which they do all the time. Anyway, so this ETS that you're talking about, that's an even more removed from the voters and from the people process, that they're using an emergency loophole to basically do the same thing faster and with no requirement of any public comment at all. And it's only been used I want to say, I quoted in my article about this, it's very rarely used, and like 80% of the time courts later overturn it because, it's just found to be that these are wildly unconstitutional.
So a follow-up on that. So you're saying that this ETS is kind of an emergency way of getting an administrative agency to do something faster than kind of normal protocol,
like legislation.
Yeah, basically. And so what this ETS is doing, it's a bureaucratic administrative command, for lack of better words, is it kind of ordering OSHA to start tracking companies over 100 on the vaccine? What was the ETS stating?
Well, there isn't any ETS state right now because that's also not filed, So like I said, but presumably, hypothetically, it's going to come out at some point. And basically what it's going to do is have the particulars of what it's telling OSHA to do to, enforce and push this law. So, but what we're really living in is basically government pride. Presley said this point. So part of the points of my article was the fact that, the president now, Obama used to joke about using a pen and a phone, and people used to understand how wildly lawless that was. The president, for the people who are not very well constitutionally educated, the president can't just boss people around. He, has laws restricting his powers. He has to work with Congress. Congress is designed to represent the whole of the American people very carefully. So, so the president cannot be a dictator, legally is not allowed to be a dictator. Well, Obama, basically said, I don't care about, all of those petty little laws and constitutional things and norms. I'm just going to be a petty little dictator. And with this press release from Joe Biden, he's taking it a step further by not even putting up the fig leaf, of filing federal regulations. He's just going to the podium and saying whatever he wants. And people, again, this has caused massive, there's lawsuits. Southwest pilots, just started a lawsuit against their airline. Yeah. It's so on and forth. This is generating massive reaction. People are acting as if just because the president says something, they have to do it. That is not Republican limited government. That is a dictatorship and tyranny.
So here's the question I was thinking about. If, let's say for a second that he actually does file a mandate and this goes into place, would it even be legal? And what are some of the reasons why it wouldn't be legal?
Well, that's a good question. So I suspect just politically speaking that one of the reasons that Biden chose to do it that way, first of all, the left just doesn't care about the rule of law. They just use that as a club to stop anything they dislike coming from conservatives because they're the only people who even pretend to care anymore about that. So he doesn't care. Democrats don't care. They do whatever they want. And then they say, catch us and stop us, kind of like with the border. But second, I also think, even just tactically speaking, if he can get people to do what he wants without having to file an order that then could be tied up in court, then what he gets to do is have all of the messaging, the news cycle, what the message that is given to business leaders, employees, the American public, lawmakers is it's a done deal. It's a mandate. You've got, 1 month to get it, done. And he basically accomplishes his goals while basically making it impossible for there to be any any legal pushback because, again, those state attorneys general cannot file lawsuits because there's nothing to file a lawsuit against. The Southwest pilots can't sue Joe Biden. They're suing their own employer because there's nothing for them to sue against Joe Biden. So it also insulates him from even, again, the fig leaves and belated and delayed several years later getting any relief or court precedent against this dictate that he's issuing from on high. So savvy politically. If he's able to do that and have people, again, it's not surprising that Biden expects that he can do that because this has been pandemic governance the whole time. Yep. The abdication of leadership by our elected officials and just pen and phone governance. So I live in a red state. I live in Indiana. We have a Republican governor and legislature. My governor has issued 20 executive orders granting himself emergency powers in a row. It has never, ever been done before. The emergency power statute's limited to 30 days. No one stopped him, right? So it's no surprise that Biden thinks he can be a petty, just stand up there and say, you do this in America. No one has really, certainly not Republicans. And even a lot of the American people have not done enough to make him feel like this would be politically risky for him. Because the political risk is, again, he doesn't care about norms. He doesn't care about the laws. Just losing elections and power of the people is really what the left cares about. And he doesn't think that he's going to lose that if he does ridiculous things.
You're going to give her an organ? You're not going to give her the organ?
I'm in awe.
She just went.
I'm just awed.
How about a shotgun? How about a shotgun?
I'll give you a shotgun.
Joy, there you go.
My goodness.
The CEO of Southwest, though, gets on Good Morning America earlier this week and says, I don't want to do this. My hands are tied. I wish I didn't have to do this. So sorry, so sorry. But in your article, you said you think that big businesses are overjoyed at this. Why would they be overjoyed?
Well, actually, I quoted an article from Bloomberg Law where they were quoting lawyers who advise big business, reporting that as their client's attitude about this federal dictate. Because what it does is gives them a scapegoat. It says, don't blame me. I have no control over our company. I can't control our policies. Blame the federal government that completely ignores you, and no matter what you do, they won't give you any relief.
So your article, just like this interview, is making me emotional. Your article kind of made me feel dumb. Because I just assumed that Biden released an executive order.
I call him Biden too.
That's fair. That I assumed he released the executive order. Now, I didn't think his executive order meant. I don't think business should follow his executive order. I didn't think there was any power there. But I thought there was enough, legal action on the president to make big business feel like they had to, submit. So there's kind of this civic stupidity that I felt from reading the article because I just assumed that Biden released an executive order. The other thing, your article kind of made me feel discouraged at just how easy the citizens just kind of go along with not even an executive order, a press release.
Right. Yeah.
You don't need to comment on that. I just feel dumb.
I don't think that it is necessarily. It's actually. So since my job for, the past 12 years has been reporting on politics, I am extremely cynical at this point. And even I thought there was an executive order because that's normal business. So like I said, it wasn't until I was talking about something else, with people who know that. And then I asked them to, check that for me. Are you sure? They went and, checked and made sure. Yeah, no, there's no regulation yet. I call up another agency just to confirm, so I don't think that you're being, necessarily stupid, but we, again, even we expect to even at least have a fig leaf, right? And to respond, to an earlier point, I don't even if Joe Biden had issued an executive order on this, or if he does in, the future, which he may still, I don't think that, and it's, that's not proven that it's constitutional just because the president wants to do it, so that's another layer of this, but, but at least at that point, it'd be open to litigation. But I also, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I really object to the fact that I need a lawyer to have any constitutional rights maybe 5 years down the road.
Seriously.
That's ridiculous. I should be presumed to have my rights, and the person who's trying to take them away from me should have to fight for 5 years, in order to get them away. So, where we are is crazy and dangerous.
So how do you take the dueling, at least Abbott released executive order in Texas, and then big business said, "Nah, we're going to obey Biden." How do you take that?
Well, to be honest, if I were, I think it depends on, what the amount of authority that you personally have, So, for example, if I were an employee in this case, I actually, I'm concerned about the vaccines medically simply because they don't have a long track record. But if I was down to the wire and my husband and I could not put food on the table for our children without taking it, we'd take it. We get other vaccines. I would take the actual vaccine out of the three, not the experimental mRNA. Or, we've had COVID. We try to, use our antibodies in order, to get. So, we wait the longest possible and use as many loopholes possible before, but, in the end, we'd put food on the table for our kids because we feel that's the right thing to do. So if that, individuals have to judge their own situations. And I, personally, advocate for doing all that you can that is ethically and, legally proper or possible in order to, get to achieve, your own decisions for your family. But we would also consider moving jobs. We would, look for a place where our employer aligns with our beliefs. Because you have to realize that a society that is prepared to do this to you, there is no stopping point from, right now it's a COVID vaccine. But, again, I'm one of those people who's not in a risk factor for, I had COVID. It was a bad flu. It was uncomfortable for me. I survived. I expected that to happen, right? So the risks of an unknown vaccine for me, I judge them as a lot higher than having actually gotten COVID, right? So, so for people to say at a risk this low, you have to be basically unable to feed your children if you don't obey us. That means they are willing to do so much more to this. So, for example, I, as a mother of kids, this is a thing that people, if they said 6 kids is evil, it's hurting the planet, right? Because this sounds like a crazy thing, but, the left has gone straight on to say the lockdowns were great. They should be used for a climate change mitigation tool, right? And so what if they said, women must be required to be sterilized at X number of kids as a climate change or whatever mitigation tool? Again, they might not do that now because it'd be maybe politically really risky, but we don't know where our society, we all got a wake-up call in 2020 about how weak and our society is, how cowardly Americans are, how willing they are to do anything that they're told and to believe packs of lies and just outright, things that don't even pass a basic smell test. So if you think that kind of society couldn't get into something creepier and creepier, then, you need to wake up because you're not paying attention. You don't know anything about history. If you look at, pre-totalitarian societies, there are many, many, many markers that we are all singing right now that are people, who know history, who are intelligent people. Their alarm bells are going crazy right now. Do I think we live in a dictatorship? No, I do not. Do I think that Americans seem way too willing to accept dictatorship? What are we talking about right now? That's exactly what we're talking about them doing.
It's funny because all I keep thinking about is, 60 years ago, we were in a very, very different place. Forget going back 120 years, 200 years, slave. We forget it. I'm just talking about 60 years ago.
Yeah.
And so
even 20 ago, just George Bush was so different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but you think about just 60 years ago, black people are just now getting the chance to really vote. Right?
Yeah.
The way we understood black humanity at the time, you don't think that we can go back to a more crazier setup with these kind of laws that are in place? At that point, at least black people had laws in place that they could fight for on the books. But with all that changing, I don't see what we would hold a stake in the ground, what we can grab onto to change the trajectory of
fight the law
and
or
fight
whatever.
it. Yeah, when we can just throw out mandates that don't exist.
Mm-hmm. At least there's laws against drinking fountains, and you can fight that.
I want to, you come down hard, I think rightly, on cowardly Republicans. And even, you said average voters acting like loser serfs. And man, that kind of stung, but you're right. But after your comments about Governor Holcomb, your own governor, and the way that he was using this sort of government by press conference, even with the churches during the lockdown, sort of, executive order saying one thing, but in the press conference restricting churches and worship and so on. And stuff, how much of this do you lay at the feet of churches and pastors?
I actually do lay a lot of it at the feet of churches and pastors, and I give a lot of grace to people who didn't know what to do in the first 2 weeks to 3-4 months.
Sure.
I think there have been pandemics past. And, distancing and protecting hospitals was a reasonable thing to take into consideration and do what we could, to try to reduce excess loss of human life. So, so I give people grace for that. But at a certain point where you see Christians then retreating into fear and denying our own basic biblical theology at the behest of obvious government dictators, when it became obvious that they were, for example, letting liquor stores stay open and not churches, even if the COVID were way, way worse, Spanish flu or worse situation, people need Jesus when they are, having people die left and right. They need Jesus when they are sick. They need the pastor there at their bedside, not waving at them through the window like some kind of coward, holding up happy. They need, the word of God, anyway. Because I think,
she's preaching.
I thought about my own death maybe because I've had, death in my family at a young age, so it's something that I've thought through maybe more than other people. And, so I've envisioned it's, Jesus, get me the pastor there to pray with me as I'm dying. Right. So that's just something that I want desperately, Yeah. And if there's no pastor, I'm going to be doing my best with the Psalms. Right. But the point being, what Christians need, what anyone needs most in a time of life or death is to have Jesus there with them. The word, the sacrament, the comfort of the gospel ministered to them. And they need that person praying with them, holding their hand, Anyway, that's just pastors who do that kind of pastoral care. And I've been blessed with wonderful ones. They know what it's like to sit there at that bedside while someone's dying and how much comfort it gives to the dying person and the family, their physical and repeat presence there. So that is no small thing. And to deny that to people, especially when we have Governor Newsom going to parties without masks, disgusting. Right. As soon as we started seeing that happen, where were the shepherds who said, I am giving my dying people, Jesus, no matter what you do to me, take me to jail? Or where were the flocks who said, we are going to be worshiping here and we will be receiving God's gifts and you can take us all to jail. This is what we need right now. At life and death, we don't need anything more than Jesus at that moment. And the other thing, as I mentioned to you, I'm trying to figure out how to write about this. Christians of all people, death is good for us. The Bible says explicitly, to live is Christ, to die is gain. I don't know about you, but I'm a Christian because I believe the Bible. What does the Bible say? You do not fear those, who can destroy your body, but fear him who controls your soul. Right? Those are our own words, and we have proof that we do not believe those words, and it is time to repent.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Hallelujah! God moving in this place. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I think kind of last question here. We couldn't help but notice that you wrote another article recently on the Cold War heating up in American Christianity, and I wonder if you see a parallel between kind of the government by press conference in the public sector and really the church by press conference now. Russell Moore press conference, leaking emails. It seems like they're both running the same play.
That's a really interesting observation. I don't know. I don't really follow a lot of church bureaucracy. I heard about the Russell Moore thing there. So that may be a fair parallel. I think
it's worse.
Christians think, right? So I break the 8th commandment all the time. So 8th commandment for me as a Lutheran is about gossiping, is about slandering other people, about making them look bad on purpose, right? So that would be something, again, that ought to be repented for, given, if it happened. Anyway, handled in a Christian way. But not about that specifically. I do think that, so you just heard from me, a parishioner, my feelings, about as a parishioner, as a sheep who desperately is hungry for Jesus and needs that from my pastor the way God has commanded, which isn't through Zoom. It is gathering yourselves together. It is, for me, physical sacraments that are Jesus' body and blood. That is not a Zoom once a quarter Christmas and Easter thing. That is as often as, you can do it at least once a week. So you heard from me, I think a lot of people who are faithful flock, whose pastors did not feed them, who starved them, they are feeling that. And that has, that poor leadership, if it's unrepented for, is going to creates a crisis of trust. Because again, you think if I get in a car accident, will the pastor come to me? Will he be there for my family, or will he carry out his duties, in other life crises the way he failed to carry them out during COVID? That's a real question. Keep habit. I think, the pastors deserve to give them an answer, and it better be the right one. It better be Jesus' answer that says, Peter, you feed my sheep.
Wow.
Will there be one? We're here at the altar. Just come on down. We have ministers here If you want to know who Jesus is, come on down and my goodness.
Joy will pray with you.
Oh my goodness, Joy. How can people follow you? Come to the Federalist. I'm guessing they can go there and see your articles, or also on Twitter.
I've basically gotten off Twitter and Facebook, so you can just find me if you search my name in the Federalist, or you look for, the contributors. I'm one of those. Those all work.
Wow.
Joy, thank you so much.
Yeah,
We're going to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Keep writing. I can't wait to see your next article when it comes out, too.
Not afraid of death.
That's right. That's going to... Joy Pullman from the Federalist. More cross-politic coming up next. I'm going to get saved again.
Rebaptized.
My goodness.
Hi, I'm Robert Borton, CEO of Classical Conversations. Our most precious commodity is time. No one has ever lied on their deathbed wishing they had spent more time making money. They all wish they had spent more time creating a legacy. Our modern education system steals that legacy, steals that time from our children. That's why I'm passionate about homeschooling. That's why at Classical Conversations we want to give you more time to create that legacy, follow your passions, and glorify God. Visit classicalconversations.com for more information.
Ouch! I tell you what.
Ouch!
Mrs. Pullman, thank you. Thank you very much.
You 6 kids of hers? You better stay in line.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Exactly. I'm telling you, man, all the mothers that we get on the show.
Oh, man.
We don't really get career women on the show. We might have done it once or twice or something. I can't remember, but these mothers.
We call it badass mothering.
Yeah, for real.
I mean, that's really good.
It's in the Greek.
You know, I don't want to poo-poo on the interview. I'm not trying to at all. Trust me. But one of the things that listen to her talk, it made me want to be a better man, a better person to say, I'm supposed to take those hits first.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really bothered me was man, I'm grateful for her.
Yes.
Because it's a blessing, right?
Yes.
In one sense. But where the guys at?
Or the men.
Where's the dudes at? You know? That she can pick up the others, but she's hitting hard. She's the tip of the spear. And I'm like,
that's really good.
Where's the dudes at?
Yeah, I know.
You know, and it made me. I had to shake myself off a little bit and say, okay, you better step up, bro.
Right.
You know.
Well, I was thinking about even in Idaho. It's all of the people that are speaking the loudest,
lieutenant governor,
are women.
Yeah,
and I appreciate them speaking the truth.
And the dudes are tripping. Governor.
No, I mean, she was talking about her governor in Indiana, Holcomb. But Governor Little did the exact same stuff on us.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So
and he's still going. Our governor's still going around wearing a mask. Like every campaign stop, he's wearing a mask. Working
Only
with
can
doctors.
stop him from speaking.
When people pull out the cameras.
Exactly. So bad. The one question I asked Joy, where I take the answer she gave us was good, but I kind of wanted to get a little more. So I asked the question is, Governor Abbott signed an executive order.
You wanted her to talk about Texas more.
That's right. That's right.
That's what this is all about. Okay.
She's but what about Texas?
Hee-haw. Mm-hmm. And because Governor Abbott, in response to all this, so Southwest Airlines came out because they had to ground all their planes, and then they're still wiggling in Texas about how to force vaccinate all these people. And so Governor Abbott came out and signed an executive order saying companies in Texas cannot force vaccinate their people.
Right.
Okay, and that was in response to apparently what everyone thought was Joe Biden's executive order,
which is non-existent.
It's
a press conference.
So
at least right now it is.
Biden
and it's working.
It's telling OSHA you're going to go and force all these companies, 100 employees or over, to vaccinate.
Right.
And so Abbott responded and said, no, not in my state, basically is what he was
Apparently
saying.
A federal press release is more authoritative than a state executive order.
You know what was really interesting about, I'll let you hold that thought real quick. But what was really interesting about listening to Joy talk was, I think we talked about this earlier, it feels like the government just run a trick football play and the center grabbed the football and just started walking, and we're waiting for everybody to say hike. Like, where's the hike at? And he's just walking right into the end zone right now. That's what this feels like, because
what's he doing walking down the field?
Governor Abbott is actually believing something about the mandate and then making his own mandate against something that doesn't exist. So he hasn't done his work either on this situation, right?
So, but I texted you guys when Governor Abbott did that executive order. I'm against governors telling businesses what to do. Mm-hmm. But I texted you guys okay, at this point.
But if it's Texas, it's okay.
No, I wouldn't even go that far. I said, but at this point, I'm sympathetic to what he just did. And the reason is because one of the plays that they're running, as Joy talked about, is they're doing all this stuff without really using standard laws.
Right.
Standard executive orders, all this stuff.
Right.
We did this. And then in addition to that, so Governor Abbott's kind of, I think, saying, hey, look, in addition to that, those what I was going to say, is a lot of stuff is going to the courts, but it's taken 2 years.
Right.
It's taken, by the time all these court decisions are going to be ruled, it doesn't matter. Right. By the time this gets, forced vaccination gets to the Supreme Court and they rule in our favor, it's not going to matter.
This is kind of like remember the analogy that Nate gave us with the election about beating who's the guy that beat the band?
Yeah.
The football.
He ran out in front of the band came on the field as he's running into the end zone and then plows right into the trombonist.
Yeah.
But it's like if you throw everything out on the field, like this is how the Democrats are running.
It's super messy.
The game's not over, but they throw everything on the field and they're hoping that basically even if they ultimately decide that it wasn't legit, by that time the game's over and it doesn't matter. That's what they're doing.
And this is what go ahead. I'll let you finish because I completely disagree with you.
So
I don't
the
care
reason
for this
why
Texas.
I'm sympathetic has nothing to do with Texas.
Yeah, it does.
Is because I think it's fair for the governor or depending on the magistrate to step in and say, hey, let's set a pause on this until we can have judges rule on it.
That's not what he's doing.
So we can actually have the legal process.
That's not what he's doing.
Fairly represent both sides of the case.
You're wrong. You're wrong, Bobby Boucher.
I understand he signed an executive order, so he's doing a mandate.
Did you bring me popcorn?
I understand he'd signed an executive order, and that's not. I'm probably being a little more favorable in the characterization than what he actually did. It's not fair. I don't have a stinger.
That's right. You sure don't.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
Go ahead, though.
But I think it's important for a magistrate to come in and try to say, hey, look, we need to.
You're saying this is a lesser magistrate standing up for the little guy.
No.
For allowing a legal process that needs to happen because
he's not doing that.
I understand he signed an executive order mandating, but I'm sympathetic to the pause that it creates.
So be wicked in order for good to come of it.
Oh, well, I don't think he's being wicked.
He's operating outside of his. We just said this. If he's operating outside of his jurisdiction.
If
Joe Biden, Uncle Daddy,
the executive order.
Wait, I gotta give myself this.
Apology.
The executive order in principle is operating outside of his jurisdiction. If the executive order said this, I'd be a lot more behind it. If he said, "Hey, I'm signing this executive order to pause all forced vaccination protocols so the courts can have a fair judicial process in all this," that's what would make me most happy.
What he's acting like Uncle Daddy Joe and a woman who is upset with her husband who isn't operating properly, and she's stepping in and putting on the pants like a man, and then is going to fix it all. Yeah. And that's not how she's required to act. Yeah. Pastor Toby talked about this. And,
you're going to bring me into
this? Yeah, because this is on you. And I never forgot this because I thought about it. I think a lot of times we live in a world where if somebody does something, it's okay for us to fix it, and how we fix it doesn't matter. Yeah. So long as we fix it.
Even if it's not our responsibility or not. We'll jump in.
But that's a lack of faith in God to be able to work through the means and the boundaries in which we are in. And God actually works through that, right? And so what the governor's job and responsibility to do is to punish wickedness and reward good, not to start acting like he owns all the companies inside of his state. Right. And the mandate is going to the companies to force them to do something. He's wrong. He's wrong.
But here's the other part of that executive order where I'm more sympathetic to.
I don't care if it's to pause anything either.
All those vaccines have, as we had Rod Story on last week, have some sort of fetal cell either directly in it or fetal cells were used to test on it.
Yes.
I'm going to sign an executive order to be like, no, not in my state.
Well, he can fix that by banning abortion, period. But it's illegal. So he can fix that. And he has the authority to do that because his job is to protect life.
Or if he's doing it on that ground, then he ought to make it, he's got to be consistent.
Right, exactly.
Like what other vaccines, what other products? Is it Pepsi? I don't know. There's like, cosmetics, whatever that's using fetal cells, and he's just be consistent if he's going to do it on that basis. Yeah.
What I kept thinking about with this, and this is what drives me so nuts because I think we want to grasp. And I feel that because there's a play for us here, and I don't think we have to do that though. If he is governor, what does he have authority over? Right? And then if he has authority over that, can he use, and like for instance, can he deputize?
He's got a sword.
Yeah, he's got a sword. Thank you. He's got a sword. Yeah. Can he deputize people and say, listen, I don't have any authority over the federal mandate, but in this state,
there's no federal mandate.
Point.
Slipped. Are you done?
You're right. But what he can do is deputize people, the police officers, say, if OSHA shows up at your job, call the police.
That's right.
They're operating illegally. Matter of fact, 100%. I don't care if it has to do with the mandates or not. If OSHA shows up,
you arrest them. Yeah.
They're not allowed. Illegally. You're acting illegally. In our state, they're not allowed to do this. We have, according to the command, the ability to be able to do that in our, it's 10th Amendment, to do that in our state, call the police, and we will have them removed. The sheriff will show up. Deputize the people to be able to do that.
To enforce it.
That's
interesting. The thing I like about that is actually, and this ties into what we were talking with Joy about last segment, was just like right now, the people feel so afraid.
Yeah.
They're cowed. And the problem is that on Republican and Democrat, right and left, red and blue, everybody's ping-ponging the people saying, trust me. No, trust me. Yeah. I'll save you. No, I'll save you. Yeah. I'll save you. And that's the problem of doing this by executive order, back and forth, back and forth. What you need to do is break the cycle, because we're not supposed to put a trust in politicians. We're not supposed to trust in horses and chariots. Right. We're not supposed to trust in man. What we're supposed to do is trust in God.
Yeah.
And what he could do is he could say, I got your back.
Yes.
Little man.
That's right.
I got your back.
As a duty that I have before God.
If someone is committing a crime against you, call the cops.
Come on, preach.
If they're going to force you to vaccinate and shove fetal cells into you, I got your back.
Against your religion, against your responsibility to care for your family, because God's made you protector of your life and health and the medical decisions of your family.
Yes.
And someone is it's basically breaking and entering.
Yes.
Into your privacy.
Yes.
In this state, you can call the cops on those guys.
Do you want to go to war? Because we could go to war.
I take that.
I like that better.
I like that because what it does is also forces Governor Abbott to be more consistent.
Right.
Why is the TSA in your airports right now?
Oh.
That's a federal organization.
Right.
Why are they there?
That's a good point, because I thought you brought that up earlier, which is right now, you just passed in the passing comment, the TSA, I think was a couple businesses. Who were the large companies? Southwest.
There
who's
was
American?
American Airlines.
So they have. So when he decided to make his mandate to go against the supposed federal mandate that doesn't exist, all the companies said, "Well, the federal mandate is more important,
right?
And so we're going to follow that one,
right?"
And that was my question to Joy, basically.
Right. And the problem is that they're all federal companies,
right?
Well, no, they have all federal contracts.
No. Let me tell you something. Get rid of TSA. Their federal contracts and all that stuff goes away. So they are attached. They got hooks in them that make them a federal entity. When you get on the airplane, they tell you if you don't wear a mask, we are federal employees.
Right.
And to treat us any type of way is like attacking a federal employee, and you'll be treated as such.
Yeah.
They ain't operating as contractors anymore. Right. They belong to the government.
Right.
And so one of the things that he could do is to say, we can help free you of that.
The other thing, he could do that for individuals. He can also do that for companies. This would be the other thing, is rather than mandating it, rather than saying it's illegal for you to do what you want in your company, he could just say, hey, any companies in Texas that do not want to abide by this law, I will throw all the strength and power I have in the Texas government to protect your right to function and run your business the way you see fit.
Our lawyers become your lawyers.
Yeah.
Right?
We will defend your right.
That's right.
Because it's your private property. It's your business.
Who's talking like that? I mean, we're not even DeSantis. And I appreciate.
And here's what happened though: is like Governor Abbott's kind of the shiny objects in front of him. Yeah. He's got his attention on this, executive order that Biden never signed, and he's responding to this executive order that never happened.
Yep.
And when he should be running this play, he's distracted by actually a bigger play that he should be running.
And this is the thing: is I don't think people realize that. I mean, again, goes back to Joy about her article. We have no one to blame but ourselves. Fundamentally, it's the people. And we are getting the kind of government,
self-government,
that we want. We're getting the government that we are asking for. We're getting the government that we demand.
We're acting like a press release is an executive order.
Yeah, like we are the cowards. We are the ones who are saying, "Well, what can I do? There's nothing I can do." And the thing is that this is why. Go back to first segment. Back to what we began with. Fundamentally, you cannot vote yourself out of this.
That's right, man.
Fundamentally, what we are experiencing is the curses of the covenant. Right? God has given us a spirit of fear. He's given us a spirit of terror. We're terrified of what the government might do, losing our jobs, losing our kids, and probably, again, to Joy's point, death, fundamentally.
Yeah.
And we of all people should be the ones who are not afraid of dying. Right. To live as Christ and to die as gain.
Right. Amen.
What built this country was Christian courage.
Come on now.
What built this country was Christian courage. People willing to die. People willing, husbands willing to lay their lives down like Christ laid his life down for the church, for their wife, for their children, for their families, for their businesses, for their freedom. But you can't have Christian freedom if you don't have Christian courage. That's right.
Come on now.
They go together.
One of the things I wanted to think about before we end, I want to think about if this is covenantal. One of the Nineveh got a prophet, started getting the gospel out. Repentance started happening. By the time it made it up to the king, everybody was already in motion. Even the animals. And so dealing with self-government first, that repentance would need to take place. Yeah. As we start in our local levels, if we want kind of Governor Abbott to act a particular way, wouldn't it be great if a model happened somewhere in a church there that worked its way out to its sheriff, that worked its way out to, because if we look at those places that we have interposition, those exemptions from pastors, I am hearing people talk about they can't get an exemption from a religious exemption from their pastors. From their pastors.
That's why I'm so grateful for the Communion of Reformed Evangelical Churches, what we're a member of. They put out a statement, a sample letter that can be signed by pastors. I've been writing a bunch of these exemption letters. Many of them are being approved. And I think that's a one tiny little step of pastors and churches getting out and practicing interposition.
And that's super important, because what that is saying is there is a government that is, not necessarily under the government here, right? We're in league together. And these are my people that I'm governing, they will not do this.
As for me and my household.
We will not. And so,
as for me and my church.
That's right. And so that's one place that I think we need to start. The other places I'm thinking, we need a sheriff is really kind of the next place, or a mayoral board or something. But to
local government.
A local government. Let's start very locally, because Abbott.
County commissioners.
Exactly. But I think that our leaders need to see us leading so that they step in line as they represent us well.
If OSHA tries to come in this county, we will politely escort them back out.
Yes, absolutely. So there's kind of some areas. I'm trying to think of anything else. Another area, maybe in schools. All right.
Well, I just want to remind everybody too, an executive order is not law. That's right. When you guys go into the airports and over the intercom, they're saying, "Hey, you need to social distance, wear a mask." It's part of federal law. How does law get made? Congress.
Right. Well, and
not the executive branch.
This goes back to what Joy said, though. She said they've been making laws through all this bureaucracy. It's not really law.
Well, because
it's just federal regulation.
And if you remember, executive orders, the tradition behind it was originally telling an agency under the president,
under the executive
branch to say, hey, Congress voted to have you build the White House, and the executive order is telling you how to build the White House.
Right.
That's all executive order does.
I hear you, but we all belong to Uncle Daddy now. We all
for a while.
And so
for a minute,
when he decides to make an executive order, look, they are all treating us. They're arresting you. They won't let you get on a plane. You can't go into service. They're all treating it like it's law.
Y'all saw Amy Klobuchar a couple days ago. She wrote, just a reminder, the word filibuster is not in the U.S. Constitution. And then a bunch of people replied and said, I don't think you really want to play this game. but seriously, right after the preamble of the Constitution, the next sentence, I'm not even kidding you, the very first sentence of the Constitution proper says, all.
Yeah.
And all means...
All means
a little bit.
All.
That's all means?
All legislative power shall reside in the Congress.
Yes. And here we are.
That's it. The other thing, last thing I'll just point out is, the gospel is at the center of this, guys. Mm-hmm. The gospel. And I don't think we can underestimate, what we have is a bunch of people professing to be Christians who don't know Jesus.
Yep.
Yeah. We have churches full of unbelievers. But that's what we have. We have churches full of people who are baptized unbelievers, who made a profession of faith and don't know Jesus, right? And we know this because that's the only way to the blessing of God is through the blood of Jesus. That's right. That's the only way you appeal for the covenant blessings is through the covenant keeper.
Well, and one of the ways we know we have a gospel problem right now is because we're more willing to listen to a press release from Joe Biden than the Bible.
Than the Bible. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, right. God had a press release.
Yeah.
I mean,
but we listen to Biden.
Oh my goodness. But when your sins are forgiven and you have Christ in you, you are not afraid of anything anymore.
Right.
That's right.
You know you've got a job to do, and you know there's only heaven. There's only glory.
Amen.
It's like either we win or we win.
That's right.
That's right.
If you're single, get married. If you're married, have kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until next week, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic.
American colleges have become more hostile to the faith of young Christians than the beaches of Normandy were to the Allies. Literally.
Undergraduate training wasn't always a death trap of unbelief. Once colleges were boot camps for body, mind, and soul.
Now, most college students spend their days in tax-funded adult daycares with all the intellectual rigor of lazy rivers, safe spaces, and complimentary condoms.
And in our recent COVID faux-apocalypse, those daycares became prisons almost overnight. Cover your face. Line up for your shot. Stay in your room. But don't worry, the condoms were still complimentary. At New St. Andrews, you are not on vacation. You are not in daycare, and you won't be herded into a dorm. From week 1, you'll be treated like an adult.
You're responsible for paying your own rent and developing your own grocery budget. Or going hungry. Get a shot, or don't. Mask up, or don't. Most of our students even work part-time jobs on top of the 40-hour class workload. It's part of the anti-fragile hustle and grind that distinguishes our graduates from the majority of their own generation, and that employers and graduate schools love.
Most college graduates in the U.S. are stuck paying off loans for years. New St. Andrews sets you up to graduate debt-free and dangerous, ready to pursue grad school, a family, or business opportunities in the real world without any reliance on pork subsidies from Mother America and with no weepy need for safe spaces. The real world isn't a cushy place. No one owes you success. You are entitled to exactly jack squat in this life. But rich or poor, unlike your face or your freedom, your job or your business, an education and the ability to think clearly can never be taken from you as long as you are still above ground. Not by petty tyrants or cowardly clergy, not by thoughtless mobs or lab coat megalomaniacs. At New St. Andrews College, you'll learn from teachers whose ideas equipped men and women to build Western civilization in the first place, and which will be used again to defend and rebuild what has been lost as the West has faltered into decay, losing her faith and her mind.
Yes, most of our best teachers are dead. But our classical Christian liberal arts education is how we've been graduating thoughtful, articulate outlaws and leaders with spines for the last quarter century. The intellectual and theological bedrock beneath the Judeo-Christian West is what you'll study, engage with, write about, and own. It is what you will debate in class and present in public as you learn to live like forbidden fire, surrounded by the darkness of unbelief, manifesting God's truth, goodness, and beauty to all who live around you.
Training like this can't happen over Zoom. At New St. Andrews, we believe whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but a companion of real or virtual fools will suffer harm. Your peers shouldn't be your spiritual leaders. You should have a real, flesh and blood, in-person church for that.
NSA is in the heart of downtown Moscow, Idaho, where you will witness men and women building Christendom on every corner. Where else are you going to be able to break bread in your professors' homes, debate great literature with them while their kids are playing, sing psalms while being arrested with them, catch turtles with them?
No one comes to NSA to get lost in the crowd. You might be able to hide in a graduating class of thousands, but our classes are better measured in dozens. You will grow in this program or you will tap out. And when you finish, you'll be ready for life, in whatever moments and scenes and struggles God may have prepared for you. We are training students who worship and march and study and fellowship and sing and write and start businesses and raise kids that no one can mask, cancel, or bury. We follow the King of Kings who knew the way through the mob and out of the grave. We fight to rebuild Christendom in the ruins, in our families, and in our businesses, in the cities where we live, in the countries where we go, in the congregations where we worship. Your mom may worry that Moscow, Idaho is many miles from home. She should worry more about how spiritually distant even a nearby godless campus is.
After 4 years in a Christian community like ours, you will grow much closer to your family. Don't stay distant. Click the link today to schedule a visit to New St. Andrews College.